World Top 100 Events. Number 63. The Expansion of Public Education, a monumental narrative of human enlightenment and democratization. This scholarly exploration delves into the historical foundations of modern society. We examine how the light of knowledge was shared with all of humanity. This is the story of our collective intellectual awakening and the systemic structures that made it possible for every person to read, write, and contribute to the global dialogue. Have you ever contemplated whether a modern nation can truly achieve prosperity when the gates of enlightenment remain locked for the vast majority of its citizens? This critical inquiry sparked a global transformation that ranks 63rd among the 100 most influential events in our shared human story. Today, we meticulously examine the data and the vivid historical realities that built the foundations of our modern public school systems. We will explore how education transformed from an elite privilege into a fundamental human right for every person on this planet. Our journey takes us across continents and centuries to witness the democratization of knowledge. This documentary follows a rigorous 9-stage academic structure to uncover every facet of this massive societal shift. From the early Prussian reforms to the digital classrooms of today, we leave no stone unturned in our quest for historical truth. The story of education is the story of humanity's ascent from shadows into the light of shared wisdom. We begin our investigation at the very roots of the pre-industrial social structure, exploring the deep-seated inequalities that once defined our species. The transition from private privilege to public obligation was the first major step toward the modern era. Before the systematic expansion of public schooling, the intellectual landscape of the world was defined by profound disparity and elite exclusivity. In the 18th century, the vast majority of the global population lived in agrarian societies where literacy was not a requirement for survival. For the common person, knowledge was passed down through oral traditions rather than formal institutionalized learning. Education was a luxury reserved exclusively for the aristocracy, who employed private tutors to provide specialized instruction in classical philosophy, mathematics, and law. This exclusivity created a massive chasm in social mobility, as the tools for governing were held by a tiny fraction of the citizenry. However, the limitations of this system became apparent as the world transitioned into a more interconnected and complex phase. The realization that a nation's collective strength depended on the intelligence of its people sparked the first discussions about the necessity of a public system. This social pressure built the foundation for the revolutionary reforms that would soon follow in Prussia. Every village and town began to feel the stirrings of a new intellectual era. The sheer volume of untapped human potential during this period was staggering. We witnessed the quiet desperation of those hungry for knowledge but denied the means to acquire it. This era of exclusion was the catalyst for a radical reimagining of the state's responsibility toward its people. Furthermore, the lack of standardized education meant that regional dialects and customs remained isolated, preventing the formation of a cohesive national identity. The aristocracy maintained their power through the control of written information, a monopoly that was about to be shattered by the printing press and the schoolhouse. We explore the specific economic barriers that kept education out of reach for 99% of the population. This period of intellectual scarcity defined the limits of human progress until the state recognized its role as an educator. Every child excluded from learning represented a lost opportunity for innovation and discovery. The transition from private privilege to public obligation was the first major step toward the modern era. We observe the early philosophers of the Enlightenment beginning to argue that a nation is only as strong as its most informed citizen. The seeds of revolution were planted in the minds of those who believed that knowledge should belong to everyone. Historical data from the 1700s reveals that literacy rates were often below 10% in rural areas. This intellectual darkness would soon be challenged by the rising sun of Prussian institutional reform. The agrarian world was governed by the seasons, but the coming world would be governed by the intellect. This transition marked the end of the Age of Secrets and the beginning of the Age of Universal Literacy. Each scene here documents the transition from manual labor to mental preparation. Furthermore, the development of the printing press allowed for the mass production of books, yet without a literate population, its impact was severely limited. The social structure of pre-industrial Europe was designed to maintain stability through ignorance, a strategy that would eventually become obsolete in the face of industrial progress. We analyze the diaries of common people from this era who expressed a profound desire for learning and the frustration of being denied the tools of literacy. This human dimension adds depth to our statistical analysis of pre-modern education. The intellectual landscape of the world was defined by profound disparity and elite exclusivity. Education was a luxury reserved exclusively for the aristocracy who employed private tutors. This exclusivity created a massive chasm in social mobility. In the 18th century, the vast majority lived in agrarian societies where literacy was not a requirement for survival. For the common person, knowledge was passed down through oral traditions. Every child excluded from learning represented a lost opportunity. Aristocratic families enjoyed the fruits of knowledge and culture. The social pressure built the foundation for the revolutionary reforms. Every village and town began to feel the stirrings of a new intellectual era. Our historical investigation commences in 18th century Prussia, where the concept of state-mandated education first took definitive root. In 1717, King Frederick William I issued a revolutionary mandate requiring compulsory primary schooling for all Prussian children. This decree was not merely a philanthropic gesture, but a strategic move to build a disciplined and loyal citizenry. The Prussian system established the first standardized curriculum, emphasizing literacy, numeracy, and national identity. We see the humble interiors of these stone schoolhouses where the seeds of the modern classroom were first planted with rigorous discipline. The social hierarchy was challenged as knowledge became a matter of national priority rather than a private privilege for the elite. This foundational era established the administrative structures that would eventually spread across the European continent and beyond. By the mid-18th century, the Prussian model had achieved remarkable literacy rates, setting a benchmark for the rest of the world. The success of this initiative demonstrated that the state could and should play a central role in the intellectual development of its people. The Volksschule became the primary engine of Prussian social and military power. We analyzed the specific data from this period, showing the direct correlation between school attendance and national stability. The Prussian experiment proved that universal literacy was not only possible but essential for the modern state. The success of this initiative demonstrated that the state could and should play a central role in the intellectual development of its people. The Volksschule became the primary engine of Prussian social and military power. We analyzed the specific data from this period, showing the direct correlation between school attendance and national stability. The Prussian experiment proved that universal literacy was not only possible, but essential for the modern state. The rigors of the classroom mirrored the discipline of the military, creating a workforce that was as capable as it was obedient. This model would later be adapted by nearly every modern nation seeking to industrialize and unify its population. Detailed historical records from the 1800s show the rapid expansion of these institutions across the Prussian countryside. The commitment to teacher training ensured that the quality of instruction remained high and consistent across the entire kingdom. In 1717, King Frederick William I issued a revolutionary mandate requiring compulsory primary schooling. This decree was a strategic move to build a disciplined and loyal citizenry. The Prussian system established the first standardized curriculum. By the mid-18th century, the Prussian model had achieved remarkable literacy rates. The success of this initiative demonstrated that the state could and should play a central role in the intellectual development of its people. The Volksschule became the primary engine. As the Industrial Revolution reshaped the global landscape, the demand for a more sophisticated and literate workforce became an urgent social necessity. Factories replaced fields, and the need for workers who could read instructions and manage complex machinery drove the expansion of schools. The 19th century became a battleground for educational reform as workers demanded access to the tools of enlightenment to improve their lives. We witnessed the grim reality of child labor slowly giving way to the promise of the classroom as governments recognized that economic progress required educated citizens. This era saw the rise of systematic teacher training and the standardization of curricula across burgeoning industrial cities like Manchester and Boston. The connection between education and economic productivity became the primary driver for massive government investment in school infrastructure. This transformation was not just economic but deeply social, as the school became a central pillar of the emerging urban community. Each new school building represented a beacon of hope for a population transitioning into a new and uncertain modern world. We examined the specific labor laws that gradually pushed children out of the mines and into the seats of learning. The data from this century reveals a massive surge in school construction and teacher recruitment. The industrial city required a new kind of human, one with the intellectual flexibility to navigate a world of machines and data. We observed the emergence of the monitorial system as a way to manage the massive influx of urban students with limited resources. The school became the incubator for the modern middle class. Literacy was the engine of the second industrial revolution. Data shows that cities with higher school attendance rates experienced faster economic growth and lower crime rates. The expansion of public education was the ultimate response to the challenges of urbanization. This period also saw the rise of technical and vocational schools designed to meet the specific needs of an industrializing economy. The sheer scale of the urban educational challenge forced innovations in school architecture and management. Historical evidence from this period shows that literacy was the primary factor in determining a family's ability to escape the cycle of urban poverty. The expansion of schools was the only path to a stable and prosperous industrial society. Each classroom was a shield against the grinding gears of the early factory system. Furthermore, we analyzed the impact of the Industrial Revolution on female education as the need for factory clerks and teachers opened new doors for women. As the Industrial Revolution reshaped the global landscape, the demand for a more sophisticated and literate workforce became an urgent social necessity. Factories replaced fields, and the need for workers who could read instructions drove the expansion. Historical evidence from this period shows that literacy was the primary factor in determining a family's ability to escape the cycle of urban poverty. The expansion of schools was the only path to a stable and prosperous industrial society. Each classroom was a shield. Across the Atlantic, Horace Mann championed the common school movement in Massachusetts, defining education as the great equalizer of human conditions. His vision promoted the idea that schools should be free, universal, and non-sectarian to integrate a diverse population into a unified nation. We explore the data from the mid-19th century, showing the rapid proliferation of primary schools across the growing United States. These institutions became the pillars of American democracy, fostering a shared sense of civic duty and intellectual independence. Mann's tireless advocacy laid the groundwork for the professionalization of the teaching craft and the establishment of state boards of education. His philosophy argued that a self-governing republic could only survive if its citizens were properly educated and informed. This period saw the creation of the first normal schools for teacher training, ensuring a consistent quality of instruction for all students. The American experience proved that public education could be a powerful tool for social cohesion in a rapidly expanding and diverse society. We see how the common school integrated waves of immigrants, teaching them the values and language of their new home. The impact of these reforms was felt far beyond the borders of Massachusetts, influencing educational policy across the entire nation and the world. Mann's legacy is found in every public high school that stands today. We analyzed the specific enrollment statistics of the 1850s, which show a dramatic increase in the number of children attending school for more than 4 months a year. This was a radical shift from the erratic schooling patterns of the past. The commitment to public funding ensured that even the poorest child had a seat in the classroom. This was the birth of the American dream through the lens of the schoolhouse. Horace Mann believed that education was the foundation of freedom and the most effective way to prevent social unrest. We witnessed the development of the high school as a bridge between basic literacy and professional life. The common school became the heart of the American community, a place where the next generation of leaders was forged. The evidence shows that by 1870, the United States had achieved one of the highest literacy rates in the world, directly contributing to its rise as an economic superpower. This era established the principle that education is a public good, essential for the maintenance of a free society. The common school was the primary instrument for creating a literate and unified American citizenry. In East Asia, the Meiji Restoration of 1868 triggered one of the most remarkable educational expansions in recorded human history. Recognizing that national survival required modernization, the Japanese government established a comprehensive national school system based on the best Western models. Within a few decades, literacy rates in Japan surged from under 20% to near universal levels, fueling Japan's rise as a global power. We observe the synthesis of traditional values with modern pedagogy in the bustling classrooms of Tokyo and Kyoto during the late 19th century. The Meiji experience proved that rapid educational expansion could be achieved through strong state commitment and massive social mobilization. Every classroom established in this era was a step toward a more interconnected and intellectually vibrant global society. The Japanese model of education emphasized science and technology while maintaining a deep respect for national history. This unique blend allowed Japan to modernize at an unprecedented pace. We examined the specific enrollment data from the 1880s, showing a near vertical climb in literacy among both boys and girls. This was a monumental achievement for a nation that had been largely isolated just a generation before. The rapid spread of schools across the Japanese archipelago was accompanied by a massive increase in the publication of textbooks and academic journals. Japan became a beacon for other nations in the region, demonstrating that education was the most effective tool for resisting colonial influence and achieving sovereignty. The Meiji reforms transformed the samurai spirit into a scholarly pursuit and laid the groundwork for future economic dominance. The globalization of the schoolhouse had begun in earnest, transforming the intellectual map of the entire world. This period saw the rise of the university system as a global standard for high-level intellectual labor. Japan's success proved that education could be the ultimate weapon for national preservation and progress. Following the end of the Second World War, the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights officially recognized education as a fundamental entitlement for every person. This international consensus triggered a massive expansion of public funding and global cooperation through organizations like UNESCO and UNICEF. We analyzed the challenges of building infrastructure and training teachers in regions that had been systematically denied access to knowledge for centuries. Vivid footage shows the construction of thousands of schools in rural villages and the surge of first-generation students entering universities globally. This era was characterized by an unprecedented global commitment to the democratization of learning as a pillar of national sovereignty. The fight against illiteracy became a global crusade, with millions of adults and children gaining access to books for the first time. The statistical evidence from this period reveals a dramatic decrease in the global gender gap in education, as more girls were enrolled in schools than ever before. This shift represented a fundamental change in the moral and ethical framework of the international community. We see the impact of decolonization on educational priorities as new nations sought to define their own intellectual destiny. The era of the human right to education had begun in earnest. We analyzed the data from the UNESCO literacy campaigns of the 1960s, which saw millions gain the ability to read and write in their native languages. This was a period of intense optimism and global collaboration. The expansion of education was viewed as the most effective way to ensure lasting peace and prosperity for all. The classroom became the front line in the battle for human dignity. Each child educated was a victory for the collective wisdom of our species. Furthermore, we explore the rise of global literacy initiatives that aim to eliminate barriers to learning in the most marginalized communities. The world was finally united in the belief that knowledge is a universal right, essential for the progress of all humankind. This period also saw the expansion of higher education as a tool for economic development in the Global South. Following the end of the Second World War, the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights officially recognized education as a fundamental entitlement for every person. This international consensus triggered a massive expansion. Vivid footage shows the construction of thousands of schools in rural villages and the surge of first-generation students entering universities globally. This era was characterized by an unprecedented global commitment to the democratization of learning. This data synthesis reveals that the democratization of knowledge has led to a surge in scientific innovation and political engagement worldwide. Every percentage point increase in literacy translates to thousands of lives improved and new opportunities created for the next generation. The evidence is clear. When we invest in the minds of our citizens, the entire society flourishes in ways that were previously unimaginable. This stage of our documentary presents the hard evidence that supports the ranking of this event among the top 100 most significant in history. We analyze the specific economic data of nations that achieved universal secondary education in the late 20th century. The results are undeniable. Knowledge is the ultimate resource for the 21st century. We observe the rising trend of lifelong learning as a necessity for navigating the rapidly changing digital landscape. The expansion of public education is no longer confined to the years of childhood, but extends across the entire human lifespan. Each data point in our analysis confirms the transformative power of the schoolhouse. We conclude our detailed historical examination with a final look at the tangible evidence of our educational progress. Across every continent, the expansion of schools has transformed the quality of life for billions. This evidence is documented in the rising life expectancy, the growth of the middle class, and the explosion of scientific knowledge. Our investigation has provided a comprehensive and hand-captured view of this massive transformation. The data is clear. Education is the foundation of the modern world. The data consistently demonstrates that the expansion of public education is the most powerful catalyst for social and economic transformation in human history. We examine detailed charts showing the direct correlation between educational investment and improvements in public health and economic prosperity. In the latter half of the 20th century, global literacy rates reached unprecedented levels, with billions of people gaining the ability to participate in the modern economy. Vivid scenes of modern digital classrooms show how technology is now overcoming geographical barriers to reach the most remote regions of the planet. Modern digital classrooms show how technology is now overcoming geographical barriers to reach the most remote regions of the planet. This data synthesis reveals that the democratization of knowledge has led to a surge in scientific innovation. In conclusion, our comprehensive analysis reveals the extraordinary scale and impact of the expansion of public education over the centuries. From its humble origins in Prussia to its current status as a universal human right, this movement has redefined the human experience. The legacy of the 17th century reforms now manifests in a global network of interconnected digital classrooms that empower the next generation. As we look toward the future, the lessons of the past century remind us that our progress depends on learning for all. This event stands as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to seek enlightenment and equality for every individual. The expansion of public education is not just a historical event, but a continuous and evolving journey toward a more enlightened world. We have seen the evidence and heard the narrative of our collective awakening. In conclusion, our comprehensive analysis reveals the extraordinary scale and impact of the expansion of public education over the centuries, from its humble origins in Prussia to its current status as a universal human right. The legacy of the 17th century reforms now manifests in a global network of interconnected digital classrooms that empower the next generation. As we look toward the future, our progress depends on learning for all. This is our legacy. The journey of public education is a testament to our collective belief that every individual deserves the opportunity to reach their full potential. As we move forward, let us remember that the doors of knowledge must remain open for all, illuminating the path toward a brighter and more equitable future for everyone. Thank you for joining us for this epic exploration of history. We hope this scholarly journey has been enlightening and inspiring. May the light of education continue to shine upon all corners of our world. Thank you for watching our documentary. 구독과 좋아요를 눌러주세요. 감사합니다.